design some, a software that maybe $10, dude, on iTunes. You know what I mean? Or maybe make it free for the community if you really have a good heart and you want to make it completely free. Or you could charge, a man for his labors, $10, a download, and make it, but actually make it like really good, man. That'd be big money, man. I'm telling you. Because flat Earth is only growing.
What if like the next big event they pull off, whatever it may be, what if that actually like ends up waking a ton of people up that they were not expecting? You know what I mean? Like the whole pandemic thing, one could argue that backfired on them in certain ways, but what if like that's only like the first backfire of many more to come? And the more they up it, the more they try to do something more dramatic, the more people become aware of what they're doing, instead of be more under their control, that they actually get less as they kind of tighten the noose. I mean, that is if they tighten the noose. I guess we don't know what's going to happen, but with what they seem to be able to do with the directed energy weapons, it's pretty concerning to think if they start unleashing those all over. I mean, they already are. There's like tons of fires all over the world right now. There have been for weeks, like more than normal. So it's already happening, but.
Hey, did you see the mayor of New York freaking out about immigration? I don't know if you've seen any of that.
What happened?
Well, just like they were all talk about like sanctuary cities and, New York being a sanctuary place. And like, now they've been arriving there for however long. And like the dude's like up, he's like, we can't handle this immigration thing. And then in DC, they're arguing about how like, the influx of all these immigrant workers have taken away the black vote, because now there's this push to have illegal immigrants be able to vote. And yeah, dude, we're under attack. I think as a nation, man, the United States is under attack. And for far too long, everyone's got their head. It's like just like any good predator. You know what I mean? The prey doesn't know it's being attacked, right?
Well,
Just
there can be
interesting times.
Can be ignorance to the criminals. Yeah, that's an age-old kind of thing. Yeah, that's how they get away with it. Is kind of the wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah, and then it's so weird too. Just so this thing is like, so everyone calls like American like the ADL, right? Like comes out against people who call open borders, like they call open borders and all these things like dog whistles to like white supremacy. But then in their own website, they support Israel's right to have borders. What do you call it? And not let anyone in because that would dilute like the Jewish, like whatever. And like they don't, they fight for it to happen in America, but then they like, everyone.
Here we go.
It's just so interesting. It's unfortunate,
Israel.
And then you've got fire. Well, I'm saying, and then you've got fires all over the fucking earth, and then you've got like people arguing about, well, which directed energy weapon are they using? Well, regardless, they're fucking using them. You know what I mean? Like, it's just interesting. It sucks. It's sad. I hope something happens.
Yeah, we need a mulligan. We need to give it another shot here. Because what happened to humanity? Like World War II, I don't know. They got us like collectively. Something happened here. Really.
Well, dude, I mean, it's pretty obvious. It's like the U.S. Like, I mean, honestly, like they made Hitler the Time Man of the Year. It's fucking like I don't even, what was it, 1942 or something like that, or I think, and like, yeah, dude, like then everyone like think about it like this, like the World War II ends, and then every single U.S. citizen gets an SS number.
Oh man.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like
literally
it's like,
World War II, we lost, and then all the Germans just came and ran America.
Right. All of them got SS numbers too, man. It's like crazy.
Operation
that, like,
Blue Clip.
It's just wild.
Like
Is that
Yeah.
when SS numbers came in? The actual Social
Yeah,
Security?
well, that's one. Think about it, bro. No, 1930s. Remember, 1913 Federal Reserve Act, 1930s. They give up, they give out like the U.S. citizen thing.
Okay, yeah.
What do you call it?
And
The
that's
possibility.
during the Great Depression. So that
Right,
would be like
but
that
then,
reset 1929 to 33. So if you're saying 1930, yeah.
you know what I mean? So all in that area of whatever that, like, and then you have the culmination of it at 44. You know what I mean? When, like, the war's over, but everyone's like, and actually it probably instigated the nationalism to become a United States citizen, which then further their line of credit, as far as I see it on the real history side of shit. So, like, because I talk about that whole why, like, the first U.S. citizen was the freed U.S. slave, and that was the collateral on the national debt. And then they added, 70 years later, I always talk about the 70-year contract. After 70 years from the end of the Civil War, you have 1933. And so you've got, that was the time when they instituted the U.S. citizen, and then the wars probably got everyone all nationalistic. In fact, what's fucked up is they used Donald Duck to get everyone to want to pay their taxes. You know what I mean? Because you became a U.S. citizen, therefore you were collateral on the national debt. Now you got to pay something. You know what I mean? So it's like they lured people in with their emotions with Donald Duck and the rest of the shit show and Save Your Country and fucking there's nukes everywhere and fucking really it's like they put in like the thing where U.S. citizens have to pay an income tax. That
you
was the
guys
whole
want the
motive.
real gravy. So I mean, so the Nazis were obsessed with secret, ancient occultic knowledge, and they were seemingly receiving information from. It's going to sound crazy to some people, but other dimensions. And they were super obsessed with genetic manipulation, gene therapy. And when you do gene therapy, you have to do it in stages, right? You have to just keep going. It's like a schedule. So they were trying to manipulate genetics with gene therapy. And this is all documented. And of course, this is where you get this whole like obsession with a certain type of race or whatever. The truth behind it is that they were obsessed with gene therapy and they were doing this with inoculations. And then they quote unquote lost World War II. They came over here. Guess what America started doing? Pumping out all of these inoculation schedules. And if you actually look into it, they are actually gene therapy. See, it's people think it's just recently that they announced that. No, they just recently told you that's what they're doing. They've been doing it since the beginning. And then in the 40s, what they did was they started pulling the copper out of the food and started saying that you needed iron in the food. And it's actually mixed synthetic iron when in fact copper is blue in the body. It's blue. And copper is actually one of the most important things in your entire body. It helps with stress and anxiety and all kinds of things. And so they pulled the copper out, they added the iron, the mixed synthetic iron, which actually works with this nano gene therapy that the Germans were working on. So the Nazis just came over here and then they just unrolled the whole masterpiece.
And now
So
they put iron flakes in your frosted flakes.
uh,
All that iron.
earlier it was being talked about. Remember when you first came in, with they were talking about how long something stays in your body, and then it got into the topic of like genetic, of like changing the genes, like what can actually change your DNA. We're talking about certain juices or whatever. Like, but just with the immune system and stuff, doesn't your DNA get changed when you get more immune to different stuff? Aren't you changing right there?
Well, that's epigenetics, but like on the change of the genetics. But real fast, like check this out. So the scriptures were actually every time where it says like iron or steel, it's actually copper in the Hebrew.
So yeah, so how are you, okay, because they do call it like the Iron Age and the whole industrial age and agriculture and all of this. And then I was saying too, like there's a whole thing where a lot of these like mainstream foods put out by these big pharma type food companies, that make all these like cereals and stuff. Like they actually, put like iron shavings in there. Like it's not even like nutritional iron. And is there a conspiratorial side to that? So yeah, so in terms of really getting that level of synthetic iron in people's bodies in a strange way. So what?
Dude.
Yeah, say more about the link between the copper and the iron. That's interesting.
This is gonna blow, yeah, dude. It's gonna blow your mind. So, so you know how women are typically more healthy? That's because they bleed, right? They bleed once a month, so they get a lot of this excess iron out. Like you're
Right.
supposed to have some iron, but the amount of iron that we have is like a mind-blowing number. Like we have way more than we're supposed to have, and it's synthetic mixed iron. So women are getting a lot of it out. And that's actually why younger women are starting that cycle at a younger age now, because they're getting so much iron in their diet. Like you said, the cereals, if you crush up cereal and put it next to a magnet, it'll literally like pull it, right? Because it's magnetic. It's got so much iron. So
How
they
long can it
flipped
stay?
it real fast. They flipped the whole copper iron thing when copper is like the most important thing, and they started telling you it's bad and pulling it out of the food, and then just shoving synthetic iron everywhere. When you also look into like this is not for everyone, but like there's a story in the scriptures of they were getting bitten by snakes, and Moses was told to make us like a snake statue out of copper, but it doesn't say copper, but the actual Hebrew does say copper. They mistranslated the word copper in the Hebrew so many times. It's really fascinating. And so when they got bit by the snake, they went there. Well, with this and then they be healed, right? Well, you have venom in the snake bites, and those have peptides. Well, if you know what's been going on recently, they found certain peptides in people, but they're synthetic peptides. So people thought that there was snake venom going on, right? Because there actually are peptides. So what a crazy little sequence of events where now people need copper to actually cure from these peptides. And I've seen where this doctor is actually having success pulling some of this nanotech out of people with copper. So, I mean, there's a lot of information here, but basically your body needs copper. It's blue in the body. It's blue, and your body needs that, and not just copper, but it needs it bioavailable copper. And this is why you have to have animal fat, and like specifically grass-fed animals. They're like twice as rich in copper as iron, and you have to have bioavailable iron for like a ton of functionality in the body. So since the 40s, they've just been slowly chipping away. And if you look in Daniel, like the word iron is used in the Bible. There's two versions in Hebrew, and there's one that is like different, meaning mixed iron. So like synthetic, and it's used like 28 times or something in the Bible. It's all in the book of Daniel, which is the prophecy of the end, and it talks about mixing the iron with clay. But that iron is mixed iron, meaning clay is us. And they're saying it literally says that they mix the seed right after that. So basically, it seems to be coming true, whatever you think about the scriptures or whatever. But like the man is being their seeds are being manipulated with schedules. We were all born into inoculation schedules, and now they're just way, way more. And they've been shipping away with gene therapy, and then they've been introducing synthetic iron mixing with your clay. And this is what gives the software system a way to operate. It's like the conductivity operating system for nanotech. So it's really kind of crazy. I mean, I know I'm like scattergunning, but it's like really crazy, bro. And that's why animal fats are so
What
important. So what are they trying to get everyone to be right now? Vegan.
what is? I'm sorry.
They want everyone to be vegan because you need grass-fed animal fats to get your bioavailable copper, and they don't want you having that. And specifically grass-fed, grain is like food of like slaves.
Right. And that goes back to something that I think we've probably all heard, but yeah, the blue bloods have more copper in their blood, right? That's why they're called blue bloods.
Well, that's also something else. So the whole blood type thing, I've found information that maybe that's kind of just a deception, and actually your blood is somewhat malleable. And the reason that people are told they have certain blood types is due to the actual amount of copper, like you're saying. And
Wow.
yeah, bro. And so that's why they're obsessed with Rh negative, but it's actually just about like copper bioavailability. That's what makes your blood more
Wow.
blue. Yeah.
That would make more sense. It doesn't make sense if we'd all have different blood types. I mean, blood is blood, right?
Well, but you do have a blood type that you can test independently. You can even get a test kit yourself, and it will be
Yeah.
consistent your whole life, as far as I know. Like nobody's changes that I'm
Well,
aware
Well,
of.
that would be the
interesting.
interesting test, right? So what
Yeah.
you do is start introducing copper bioavailability and see if anything changes. Like the vast majority of people just have a ton of iron. And in fact, this is what they always tell you. They're like, oh, you have an iron shortage, iron, 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 iron. And then they have people taking absorbic acid, the synthetic thing that pulls copper out of your body. Because actual vitamin C is supposed to have copper inside it, 4 different molecules. So it pulls the copper out of your body when you take absorbic acid because it's synthetic. That's why the elites aren't coming after your absorbic acid, because it pulls copper. Everything's been engineered to pull the copper out of the body. and to introduce synthetic iron in place of it. When you have too much synthetic iron, it has nowhere to go because it can't actually assimilate or assimilate into the body. So it like starts to congregate into joints and organs and tissues. And that's when you get all kinds of issues like arthritis and blood clots and crazy stuff with the
Right.
heart. Yeah.
So would an Rh negative person have a higher copper content, possibly? Then? Is that the whole idea?
Yes. Yeah. Speculatively.
Wow. So if you
So the
were
elite
like,
know.
if you were an overdose of copper, you could become Rh negative.
That part is like that part's highly speculative. I just heard someone say that. But what I do find interesting is that like good organic liver is very important. Animal fats are very important for copper bioavailability. They don't want anyone eating this stuff. If you are eating meat, they want you to eat grain-fed meat, not the clean. See, the reason that they're called clean animals is they eat greens. They also mistranslate Genesis there as well because I mean, whatever you think about the scriptures, bro, it obviously is a pretty valuable blueprint because they really messed with it, bro. And it tells you eat the animals that eat greens, not grains. Okay, because grains are not good for you. Grain-fed animals are not good for you. Now you have to go pay twice as much to get grass-fed beef, right? So, anyway.
Yep, and they've eliminated the organ meats almost entirely, especially from like in the United States. In Europe, they still have some of the traditions where they eat, heart and liver and even kidney and other organ meats and things like that. So it's eaten more in Europe overall. The organ meats are still part, but even there, it's being kind of lessened. There's so much propaganda against it. And then in the United States, like this whole whatever this all is and whatever's all kind of transition, they've done a huge effort to eliminate organ meats from being a regular food. I mean, it's hard to even find liver, in the stores and things. And then, yeah, liver is, as far as I know, like one of the highest copper content foods you could eat. So
Correct. Yeah, and it's liver's just amazing for all kinds of things, right? It's just so freaking nutrient rich, and people are lacking vitamin A, and you need animal vitamin A, and you need animal fat to make it bioavailable. Same with the copper. Grass-fed animals are twice as rich in copper as iron, and there's a difference in bioavailable iron and the synthetic iron that they're putting in our food.
Well,
But this ties
you know
back
what?
to the Nazi thing. When the Nazis were experimenting with this, a lot of them get put in power positions here, including the pharmaceutical companies like Bayer. All these pharmaceutical companies, they integrate into the United States power position, including NASA. And there was no World War II where the Nazis lost. None of that happened. Like the Nazis just moved over here. They now also run the United States. The same, like George Bush Sr., where did he get his funding?
Yeah,
The offspring of the Nazis.
you know about like IBM then and all that shit. Like the first use of computers for statistics was in the concentration camps, and
Yo, check this.
it was the fucking tattoos. But real quick, just back to food, real quick. What I thought so interesting, and I just carry on because I only got a second, is the idea of like how animals, like, so the minerals are in the rocks, which come up, and they, the grasses take the minerals from the rocks. Then along comes the animal, eats the grasses that has 4 stomachs to deal with it, and then we eat the animal. It's fucking beautiful.
It is, yeah.
How beautiful,
Because in the there's an oxidized form that isn't bioavailable. Like you can't just eat iron that you find like in a bridge. You know what I mean?
Right, and that's
it's
what I mean. Like the
oxidized.
plants can, and then the animal can, and then you can eat the animal. Like it's so
Exactly.
ill, man.
It like makes it for you. But this will maybe help put a lot of pieces together. Okay, so they've been putting on people on these inoculation schedules. Okay, and now they've upped them to like 70 by the time you're 18, right? But we've all been born into that. Very few of us dodged that bullet because a few parents were aware and knowledgeable enough. Most people weren't, right? But it's not just like a one and done thing. They have to keep on doing it. It has to be a schedule because it is gene therapy. What people don't know, they think they just started doing that. No, they've been doing it. Now they've just upped the ante. They've upped the ante with the nanotech. Okay. So when people are like, why is Bill Gates in charge of health? Because it's a Microsoft computer program. Who else would be in charge of a computer program? The computer programmer, right? Of course, he is the man for the job. people think he's like stepping in like out of left field, and no, he's literally in his lane. That's really all I'll say about that. Obviously, I don't want to get too specific about that, but I mean, when that really clicks with you, it makes perfect sense that it's Bill Gates.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Like I've been noticing this dynamic of, like, let's say when we're talking to someone or debating on any of these subjects, especially like flat Earth and stuff. Like, if people haven't come down like the historical narrative, like kind of we just laid out right there. Like, if you're totally unaware of that or totally like unconvinced of that after they like shot JFK in a fucking town square, like if fucking you aren't like you're never gonna get certain or any of this shit. Like, there's no way. It's too horrific. Like, and we almost deal with it too nonchalantly.
You actually believe in a deep state?